Colleen Kradel. I am the owner of Be Well, Betterment Counseling Services. I'm a clinical therapist in Martinsburg, West Virginia.
Hi everyone, I'm Billy Candela. I am the creative director at Conservation International. We're a multinational conservation organization.
Justin Howard, creative director, Deloitte Digital. Deloitte Digital's design consultancy based out of Roslyn.
Hi everybody, my name is Mira Azram, and I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C., just like many of us. I can't say that what I do is graphic design, maybe a very small percentage. Now I do more in design leadership, facilitation, teaching, a lot of teaching and consulting.
Hi everyone, I'm Nathan. I run a small design studio in DC. It's a studio and workshop, and I teach at GW. I teach in the third year BFA program. I think for me the biggest challenge was deciding that I was going to do my own thing. You know, there's not like this one big book of this is how you do it, and I was looking for that. I was looking for that one thing that like would tell me all the answers. And I think the moment I realized that there are no answers, you kind of make it up as you go, and there's lots of good advice and lots of good people to, you know, in our, like especially AIGA, a lot of great folks that can build a community that helps support these ideas that you have. I think that's kind of the way that's allowed me to create a business successfully, I feel.
Yeah, I followed a pretty traditional path initially. I took on full-time work as a graphic designer. I loved what I did. Actually I think I was doing a pretty good job as a graphic designer. I was very creative. I worked directly with clients. I had a lot of autonomy. It wasn't until I started doing other things on the side that I realized that there was a disconnect between what it was I was doing on a day-to-day basis and what I really wanted to be doing. And you know, it's not like a lot of time transpired between when I started my job and when I went to get my master's. It was maybe 10 to 12 years. It's about typical, I think, when you start looking at making a shift. But at the time, there was a sense of what design could do, but the conversation on a national level was happening at a very different scale than what was happening like in my workplace, for example. So I kept pushing the boundaries of what I thought we could be doing at the University of Maryland, which is where I was working, and was hitting that wall of, yeah, but what we really want you to do is design publications and when it works. Like, that's why you're here. And I'd say, yeah, I can do that, but what about this and what about that? And so I found myself really frustrated by the time I reached my late 20s, thinking that, well, maybe I'm just not supposed to be in design anymore. Maybe there's no place for me, because what I was getting out of like AIGA, for example, or social justice projects that I was working on was this sense of like the capabilities and capacities of teams and interdisciplinary work. For me, the breakthrough moment was when I started working with a career coach, because I just was like, I can't stand another day here, and I know it's not the job, I know it's me. What can I do? I didn't want to just go find another job. I really wanted to have a strategy. So the breakthrough moment was when I wrote my own obituary for that coaching session, and I thought it was a silly exercise, and I hate writing. It's just, I find it busy work, but I wrote it, and everything I wrote in that obituary was about working with other people and my contributions to kind of like a richer world, like setting up a scholarship fund or interacting with people and helping them do good work. And I didn't mention a single line of what I did on a day-to-day basis, and I realized I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing. So I just had to make a change.
Well, I mean, I started a career as a graphic designer, print design, brand. I got fortunate, got a great gig, jumped right in, did good work, enjoyed the work, kind of found, I think, some of those initial sort of, yes, this is the right path in those first couple years of really just getting into the work. I think the frustrations at times throughout the 15 years and change as a creative professional, I think most have been when I've been more on my own, and just recognizing the limitations of that setup. And so I think the the I got this is actually the we got this, which is really the finding the not only the support, but I think the drive and the passion of others, not unlike the panel here or those in the crowd today, is actually where I think I find myself most comfortable, but also where I do feel like, okay, yes, we can do this. I definitely look at a team at Deloitte Digital where, started very few and now 100 and change, and each one of those people have influenced my thoughts on design, my thoughts professionally and personally. And I think that to me is that, for me, was that kind of sea change.
For me, I don't think I ever had an aha moment. Just looking back now, I think that my career has been, navigating as I go. And there was one clear shift that I had. I started out at a small agency, and I left that job because the industry at the time was doing very poorly. We lost a lot of clients, and I needed to make a move. And I ended up in a place where I ended up thriving really well. The agency that I was at, I started there right out of school. I was the youngest by probably 20 years. Everyone around me was very experienced, and I was a sponge. I was learning from them. I was in the mode of, I'm the youngest one here, and these people know what they're doing, and I'm learning a lot from them. And that was a hugely valuable experience. And then I switched gears and I went into a nonprofit. That was 7 years ago, and that's still where I am now. But I didn't realize what I had done at the time is I went into a position where my role completely changed. I was no longer the person learning, but I was the person teaching everyone about design and what power design can bring. We didn't have a design team at Conservation International when I started. I was the first full-time graphic designer, and by doing good work, I showed a lot of people what design can bring to an organization. And through that process, I found people that were my allies and my supporters, and those are the people that promoted the work that I did and entrusted me with the company's reputation in many ways. And so figuring out what role you play in an organization, whether it's you're in a learning mode or being the design leader, I think that's kind of important. And I didn't realize that change happened at the time, but looking back at it now, I kind of did that naturally. And over the years now, I've been able to build a design team and a very well-respected role in the organization that didn't exist before. So there's my aha moment right now. I just realized.
Success.
Yeah.
All right, so very different career path because I'm a counselor, unlike everybody up here. But for me, I was in agency jobs in the very beginning. I was your typical clinical social worker. I was doing in-home foster care, doing the grind of all of that. I loved working with my clients. I loved working with people, and it was my passion. But there's so much noise in the agency and everything else. I moved to the school. I loved the school, but again, there was a lot of noise, people telling me how to do my job, what I should be doing. My breakthrough period in my life was probably when I had kids. I had my son 8 years ago, and I decided I wanted to stay home for a little while. I wanted to keep working, but I wanted to stay home. But I didn't want all the other noise. So I had to figure out a way to do that, and so I had to shift to being my own boss, and that was just an amazing experience and very difficult at the same time. But because I eased my way into it, I didn't put too much pressure on myself. I, gradually got to where I am now, but because I wanted to build my life around my kids and my life. I didn't want my life to be built around my career, but my career to just make my life better. I wanted to be, having fun when I went to work and enjoying the people part of it. And I get to do that every day. I don't have to listen to the noise. I don't have to listen to everybody else tell me what to do. I get to do what I want to do every day.
For me, it's being open to any avenue, but I think more than that, it's it's if you have the opportunity early to kind of find yourself and be true to that, just ride that out. That's, to me, that is the thing that I look for. That is the thing that I think is an anchor in my own personal journey. Is just at what point does this feel like the right place for me to be, or is this the right opportunity that I want to go after, or am I surrounded by the right people? I think authenticity with a little dose of humility is going to get you pretty far.
Networking is number one, and I think it's a bit of a cliche, but you don't build your network when you want a job. You build your network like now. You start now, and you don't think about it as where's my next job, but who else could I meet? What kind of connection can I make that may lead to something later? I would also say that networking outside of the confines of your industry I've found that to be very, very valuable. So think of the different things in your life, the different interests that you have, and find ways to broaden them.
The idea of networking, and I think sometimes that term can be a little daunting. Like, what does it mean to network? It doesn't mean I have to go to formal events. Sometimes it's just asking somebody to go out for a coffee and telling them what you're interested in or what you're doing, and you never know where that's going to lead. And that's my first job was because I sent somebody an email and I said, oh, I'm moving into your town and I'm interested in your company. And the response I got back was, okay, come see us when you get to town. And I went and I ended up working there for 3 years. So you don't know where things are going to lead, and if there's somebody that you respect or a firm that you're interested in, reach out and see what they're doing. And sometimes there's not a job there, but you'll learn from the experience.
I was saying, I feel like when you're emerging as a designer, I think it's really important to be patient. I think there's too often people feel like they have to feel like they know what they're doing and they're professionals and they've had years of experience, even if they don't. There's this feeling, I think, this pressure that you may put on yourself that you have to prove something, and it's just, I think, taking the first several years and being a sponge, listening, making sure that you're putting yourself in positions, you're working with people that you respect, that you admire, and absorb, just learn by watching, by doing, by being in the space. It's all gonna just, if you're willing and you're open and you're humble, you're gonna absorb it, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. And paying attention after you absorb it, like pay attention to what interests you and what struck you about that interaction. I wish I would trust myself more.
I was going to say,
listening to me.
Yeah, listening.
Not everybody else.
Patience. I think that's why I brought that up, because patience, it's only been, I've been doing this for a while, and I just feel like at this point in my life, I feel confident in the things and decisions I make, because I have patience with myself. I have patience with other people. I'm okay. It's fine to make a mistake, or I think that's probably one of the biggest things when starting out. If I had done way more of that, I would have absorbed a little bit more in a more unique way. Okay.
What I wish that I had was more of a growth mindset at that time, which is something that I've had to learn to do, and I don't have it down, but that sense of, well, I may not know it now, but I can learn it, or I can get better at this, or maybe this isn't my passion or interest, but there's some way I can engage or bring in another person who might be able to do this and likes to do that. So
whether you're a young designer or very experienced, if you're in a position where you don't feel like you're learning or growing in some way, whether it's personally or financially or emotionally, whatever it is, like if your position is kind of not allowing you any kind of growth, that's when it's time to go.
In recognizing that, though, there's also the recognition that it takes a lot of courage to actually take that step, right? That comfort, that familiarity, to actually start to make those steps is I think in any of those decisions in my life, it's I think understanding that usually it's way after the fact.
You can also think of your career as a number of short jumps that add up to a big leap. So if you need to go do something different, you can go do something different, but at the same time, don't think that just because you find another job and that next job isn't going to solve all your problems. You need to come up with a strategy. At least for me, if you want a healthy, thriving career that grows over time, it's not something that just happens all at once. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that, but the number one thing is just being intentional about, let me figure out more about this thing that I love, or if I can integrate that, or who else is doing that. At the same time, if you're going to take something that is your just obvious next step, another job comes up, or you just need to get the hell out of there, think of it as, well, what can I learn from this experience? What could I do here in this amount of time so that it's not a wasted jump?
And I would say have a healthy work ethic too. I feel like coming into something and getting frustrated 3 months down the road in your new job because they still have you on PowerPoint, they still have you looking up, typography for someone else's logo project. You're earning your stars. You know what I mean? We all have to go through that. And I think to assume that you roll in, you gotta have a good work ethic. You gotta understand. I think going back to patience.
Knowing when to say no, because that's equally hard. I think when we, have friends who need favors or projects that come up, or I have clients that I still work with from my past life as a graphic designer, and I love working with them, but I've started finding new strategies. I just don't necessarily have the same bandwidth for that type of creative work. So I've started working with former students of mine who are developing their careers and being an art director as much as they need me to versus giving them creative control. So I've actually managed to be doing the things that I love doing with the old work that I was doing. So it just requires really thinking about, well, I don't like working by myself. I want to have new things come up. I like invention. I like interacting with people. And so if it feels lonely, if it feels like busy work, then I know those aren't things that are in my wheelhouse. And so I have to find ways to either attack them differently or just get rid of them because.
But saying no is always saying yes to something else. So while you might be saying no to this or that, and if you feel conflicted in that decision, you're saying yes to spending time doing something you're enjoying doing. So it's it's that balancing act.
I mean, following your passion doesn't have to be design. I mean, I think earlier on in my career, everything was all about that. I mean, I feel like I designed everything, like whether it was a card for a friend or a compact disc. That balance on the other side, doing something that is not design actually makes me a better designer, and I think that compliment is actually where I feel, whether it's necessarily a quote-unquote passion or a hobby, I think that's just where I find happiness. I think
it's important to understand that the people that you're going to end up working for hopefully want you to be successful. So if you talk to them and tell them what you want to do and what you're interested in, that might help improve the situation, improve what you're working on, or
be okay with hearing the answer you don't want to hear, which is that it may not be the place for you. If you're being clear about what you want and what you need, you have to be okay with the fact that you might have to make changes for that to happen. It's not really.
You mentioned finding happiness in other things, outside activities, connecting with friends. I think that's a big one. Exercise really helps get those healthy endorphins going in your brain. Another big one that is gratitude. Gratitude, at the end of the day, even in the darkest moments, trying to find something, roof over the head. God, what I need. I fed my belly.
I always have at least one studio project that I'm working on. When I say studio project, it's me. It's my project. Whether it doesn't matter what it is, but there's this ongoing design project that I can come back to and escape the client work. And what it does for me is it allows me to not get so frustrated with client work when they don't exactly like the colors that I'm choosing, or there's pushback, or we've all experienced it. It's like that frustration seems to kind of go away a little bit when I have something that I'm working on and developing that is mine, that no one really is going to come back and say, and if you could just push that over a little bit more. Because my first job was at a coffee shop. The other part of that business was this architect who had a he had a designer, and I stayed with him for 6 years. They both became my mentors. They both became something that they taught me how to look at the work that was coming in and how to reimagine it, and if something were to come in, like what are the different ways, using all those copy machines, how could I make it cheaper, faster, quicker, play with it and make it different. I think that those first 6 years really gave me a lot moving forward.
One thing that's been really rewarding for me is helping others to learn the ropes, essentially, of hiring junior designers and teaching them what to do, and remembering that I was there once as well is very rewarding. Another thing that's great to look out for is the people that are your champions, especially when you work in a large organization like I do, that you don't want to get lost, and when somebody continuously reaches out to you for help with something at work, that means they trust you and they value what you're doing, and pay attention to that, because those are the people that you really want to become more close to.
Ask.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you know, it's like first date type stuff. Like,
And it's awkward.
yeah, I think it really is just like if there's someone that you're really inspired by, or there's someone like, oh, that's kind of, and then you ask.
Yeah.
I think more so now than ever with social media and everything, and we've become such a sharing economy that you don't have to write somebody an email and say, I would love for you to be my mentor, but more like, meet me for coffee. I do it all the time. I try to put on my calendar at least once a week to have coffee with someone brand new. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But when you do, it's like you realize that there's connections you have, and there's ideas, and these people tend to then be, you mentor each other, really. I mean, I feel like now I have lots of people that I go to and admire.
Also, developing a self-awareness, like what are your weaknesses, what are the things that you want to work on, and then finding somebody that's really good at that. But maybe you're not good at giving presentations, and you really want to work on that skill. Find somebody that's good at that and ask them for pointers. So.
You should be annoyingly persistent. If there's somebody that you would like to interact with, don't wait for them to give you permission, because
I think respect comes in all forms, and it's easy to tell when someone doesn't have respect, and too much respect for themselves.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
I don't care what your portfolio looks like.
Too too self-conscious and too overconfident. So.
Just a lack of passion. Like your work could be great, and you like there's almost just like a passe. You're just not really that invested. I think it just exudes, and that to me is kind of like, all right, well, why would I invest in you if you're just kind of like you're not really going to bring anything to the table.
When you are presenting your work, find what your passion is and show it. Tell your story, because if you don't, deliver your personality in some way, you're not going to make a connection.
for me it would be, there's two things. One is rigidity. So it doesn't mean you can't like to do things a certain way, but if you cannot fathom that there's another way to do things or another approach, that's just, to me, the most horrible interaction.
So I know we brought up a lot of humility, check your ego, all that sort of stuff. Healthy confidence goes a long way too. I don't want to like.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the healthy.
Yeah. I wouldn't bury or hide that, but I would make sure that there is that. I mean, we're talent-based, or we're in a talent-based industry, so being able to show a portfolio and the work and the design thinking aspects, things like that, is obviously the part that that's what you're getting hired for. You're not.
I would say that it just, for encouragement, that it's very common. I've seen a lot of resumes of people that have a lot of different experience out there, so it's not going to be unexpected. But also keep in mind, what are the skills that you have in your experience that are relevant?
There are a couple of things that you have to be aware of if you're not already. I'm sure you are. One is that there is a bit of ageism when it comes to positions that are lower. So there will be assumptions that you'll want to work for a certain amount of money, or that you won't be able to learn quickly. I mean, those are things that are just going on in the background of people's minds when they're looking at resumes, no matter what. How the presentation is made, the resume and the website. So if it looks like you don't have any design experience based on that, someone is going to filter you out pretty quickly, regardless of how amazing your career was beforehand. So The way I think to approach that, to solve that, there's a couple ways. One, you have to be able to show, you need to show that you have this experience from before, but that you're in a different frame of mind than someone who doesn't have any design experience might. Another thing that you can do is intentionally engage in classes or curricula or activities that will add projects or activities. Like General Assembly is a great example. A lot of people do that for UX design. They also have front and web design. They have regular graphic design. So doing that kind of thing throws you into a new network, as well as gives you projects that you design that you can add, as well as a certificate or class credit. So
intent and like being intentional in, okay, hey, I want to go after this type of, I want to go work for these types of studios or these types of places, and be intentional with making those connections happen. You know, if that is, you know, dropping an email, hitting it on social, whatever it is, whatever avenue, there's just so many that are open right now to get to that. I would just be decisive in that, because I think the other side of it is just like, yes, you've got all this good stuff, but if you're waiting around or, you know, waiting for someone to discover you, that might take longer than going and getting it.
I would say also, you know, if you're, you know, looking on social media and you find that there's a company or organization that you want to work with, and you see, for instance, if they have an Instagram or a Facebook or Twitter, you're looking at their work and you start to see what kind of work they're doing, and then if you reach out, you have some sort of point of contact that you can say, or point of reference rather, where you could say, hey, I see you working on this project, I find it really interesting. You know, if there's a way you can bring up a conversation, it's good to have those really nice engagements. Sometimes I do get an email where people will say, I love this project that you're working on. Here's a project that I'm working on that's similar. I'd love to sit down and talk with you. Do you have an available opening? And whether I have an opening or not, I'm definitely going to have coffee with you.
Also, it's important to continue to develop your self-awareness. Like, what is it that you're passionate about, and practice your story. Like, tell, like, who are you?
Yeah.
What makes you different? And what's the red thread that ties all your experience together, and get that story to others. You convince others that the work that you're doing is important, and that you know, you can design something that's the perfect solution for the problem that you presented, but you can't just turn it in and say, I'm done. You have to sell it to the people that you're working, whether it's through an internal client or an external client. You know, developing that ability to convince somebody that your work is the right work that was needed for this project is difficult. And whether you worked on it or a designer that works for you did it, you have to practice a lot. And I struggle with it sometimes because.
And I think there's been part that has been hard to let go of some of those things, like wanting to get in there, wanting to design, but I think there's a surprising outcome that happens from that. And something that I wouldn't have done, but allowing that space to happen was, to me, was just the path forward. And it's just been sort of step and repeat from that. Is knowing when you need to be like, all right, you know what? This isn't the right direction. We need to go a different way. It's a hard conversation to have at times, but it's the right conversation to have. And I think that comes with maturity, comes with those sorts of things. The management, the dealing with egos, personality management, all that stuff, I don't know that I didn't take any classes for it. I don't know if there are classes for it. I think it's just,
like, not everyone should be leader, like, you know, in a leadership position, because it's true. I think as much as I think we start working towards some kind of goal, right? Maybe some of us think that I should be at some point in my life an art director or a creative director. And I don't think that that's necessarily an pressure that everyone should be putting on themselves. I think that if you have the DNA for that, perfect. If you, when I say DNA, like, obviously it's something that you learn within the job, but I think there are some people who do really well at making. Finding out, I think it goes back to finding out what it is that makes you happy, what it is that makes you feel fulfilled as a designer, as a creative.
Yeah, I would say that it's about, don't aspire to a job title.
Right.
Aspire to a kind of work that you feel like you are the one to do. And sometimes that means being really creative about, like, asking questions about, well, where you're working. Is there something that could be done that isn't being done that you could actually do. And sometimes all you have to do is put a name to that and then make a pitch and say, I think I'm the one to do this, and this is how I would do it. And maybe that involves leading or directing another person, maybe not. Maybe it just means you have more autonomy. It could be going and creating a design department in a place that doesn't have one. So, you're not gonna. If you're thinking the next thing for me is to do this, that's not a healthy way to grow your career. The next thing I want to do is this, is more healthy.
If your long-term goal is to be some kind of a management role, I would say right now pay attention to what your bosses are doing and whether they have a design background or not, pay attention to what frustrates you about their actions. And when you do get into that role, remember what frustrated you.
Or motivated you.
Or motivated you.
Yeah.
That's what I do all the time because
The reason that I went on my own is because I needed to do and work on the things that I wanted to work on and figuring it out on the way, instead of waiting for someone to hand that to me. I just had to just make it. In order to go out on your own, you have to be prepared for the unknown. But I feel like a lot of people are. I haven't really met very many people that I would say, oh, you're not a candidate for this.
I just say don't do it if you want to go on your own just because you don't want to work that hard. That's not a good reason.
Yeah. You'll work way more, right? Yeah.
And
So
the hours are weird.
the hours are weirder. You have to give up your weekends. You're like, I just know. Guess what? I'll probably get a Wednesday off, but that means Saturday's taken or my Sunday's taken. But my life that's all I think about. It's like, what's next? What am I doing? Billing, invoicing, proposals. It's just okay. So, I do now. I didn't when I started. When I started, my business plan was to get a space and get off of my coffee table. But I think it's a really healthy thing to do. I think when you're starting your business, this is what I tell people now, when you're starting your own business, I think it's really good to have all of your, have some sort of financial plan. It doesn't mean that, I need to make X amount a year. It's not, it can encompass a lot of different things, but I think having a good contract in place, having a lawyer that can give you some of your boilerplate contracts and agreements, getting all of those things in place, I think is part of the due diligence of going out on your own, and that will just make your life a whole lot easier.
You don't have to start from scratch. There's a lot of resources out there.
And AIGA has a lot of resources too.
I'm sure they do.
A lot of resources for businesses that are starting out on their own. There's lots of boilerplates there, so that's a great place to start.
Yes.
I think absolutely. I think if you want to be part of a larger conversation, you need to be multilingual, and I think that is just an expansion of understanding. And business is not, again, it's just not some degree. It's a way of thinking. It's an experience. It's understanding some of those pieces to be able to meet your clients, to be able to meet colleagues, etc. I think it's part of the game. I don't think you can say we get a seat at this table if you don't respect or appreciate the table that is there.
Many organizations and businesses are extending the opportunity for designers to get involved, and I think that it's only fair that we come to the table with an understanding of what it is that they're trying to accomplish and know the language and the terminology. And that's, for me, it's been a bit hit or miss, or ad hoc. I learn it as I go, it's not just that there's a bunch of people over here who don't get it and we have to go convince them. It's that there are a lot of people who are starting to understand more, but they need to know how to use these skills and they need to know how to work well with designers. And if you can be that person who can operate among all of those different areas and disciplines, you can be a huge instrument to making that, opening up the possibilities.
And I think what is it that defines success in a client situation or a project situation? Is it that you were able to sell them the logo that you designed, or is it that you were able to create something that helped fulfill a strategy that they, from a business perspective, are headed towards? And how can you use your style, your design, your sensibility, your sensitivity to things that look good to make that better.
I would say observation, like what's going on, what are the different, what's the jargon, what's the terminology, what's the context, questioning, like I'm even if I'm in a new environment, I'm not afraid to ask if something doesn't make sense to me, or because I want to know more, and so just being curious.
I mean, the fake it to the make it only gets you so far. At some point, you really need to invest in and understand the concepts, just fundamentally at the core. What are those core concepts? So that you can have a part of that conversation and bring your lens to it. I think that's the piece that, and to your point, which I love, is ask questions. Like being fearless and like, wait a second, that doesn't sound quite right, or why are we doing it that way? Those questions are just, I mean, they're coming from a space of humility and curiosity that I think can challenge in a very positive way that conversation.
So it's like, you take that, and then what I do is I give them what I'm hearing that they're wanting, right? And then I give them another solution, and it could be double the work, but how much do you believe in this? How much do you believe that this is the right way? And usually if you give your boss or someone who's creating, this project, you're giving them what they think they want, you've fulfilled that, so you're respecting that relationship, but you're also doing your job by going beyond and saying, here is an approach that I really believe takes this to another step. It's a conversation. It's a conversation that's visual. And usually they end up seeing a little bit more of what you're talking about.
I tell my team to never blindly accept somebody else's solution to a problem. I want my team to be seen as helping to solve problems, and very often it's a very innocent thing. Somebody will come to you and say, I need to create this fact sheet, or I need to design this brochure for me. And it takes some effort to continuously go back to them and say, well, wait, what are you trying to accomplish with that? What problem do you have? Because they're presenting you with the solution already. They're saying, I need a fact sheet, or I need a brochure. But I think it's a very important role that every designer can play to say, let's take a second to understand what your problem is, and maybe there's a better solution. Maybe this is the right solution, and you've come up with it on your own, but let's partner in thinking through the problem and finding a solution.
Both is changing it from opinion to conversation and actually having a dialogue, because, I mean, yeah, I like the color purple too, but why, and let's actually,
Does that make sense?
yeah, let's talk about what that is. I think the co-creation and sort of having, and because I think that specifically where I am now and what we're doing at Deloitte Digital, it is working with clients that aren't as familiar with some of these new processes. So actually having them walk alongside has been invaluable to having those other conversations. Like, it sets up that conversation, and again, it doesn't become just opinion. It becomes, oh, well, we were doing it this way. I saw this other thing. I wanted to do this. Okay, great. Let's talk about that. Does it make sense? Does it not? UX doesn't just hand off to visual. It doesn't hand off to engineering. Like, we all go into this thing together and are able to have that conversation that otherwise wouldn't happen.
Finding mini self-care tips, tasks, so taking a minute or 5 or 10 in the morning to sit and meditate, or just go for a walk outside, take the dog out, whatever it is, just taking time before you start your day. And it can be part of your normal routine, so making self-care part of your routine rather than, going around and saying, okay, I'm burnout, I need this now. It's just part of your daily routine. So at lunchtime, you do some different stretches. Before you go home, commuting or whatever, again, taking 5 minutes just to do some deep breathing, or, chatting with a friend, connecting for coffee in the morning or in the evening happy hour. But,
For me personally, I have a tremendous support structure. I have an anchor that reminds me and keeps me grounded, and I have purpose that reminds me of decisions that I make. move out and make it a little bit easier. But I think balance is nearly impossible.
The moment that I let go of my business being Monday through Friday gave me a tremendous amount of like relief, because there are times like your dad where I'm checking the email at 11 o'clock at night, and I also given myself permission. When I tell someone that I'm going to give you something that day, I have until 12 midnight.
Just the establishment of boundaries, and that's a slightly different take on that, but I think the establishment of that, it just, like, whether it's the team, whether it's the people you're working with, like, understanding that I am out at this point of time, and, like, that is not, like, I am not working during this time, like, you know, like, taking time off and actually taking time off.
And I could literally work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and always have work to do. But I choose not to do that because I know it's not going to make me happy. It's not going to be good for my career. It's not going to be good for my team. So you have to figure out what's the most important work that needs to be done, what are the priorities, and how do you get that into the day in the time you have. Sometimes.
That's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't, and you realize that it's like, I don't know. It's like it's yeah.
It's tough whether you're doing a freelance basis work or if you're an internal employee, and you know I get people that come to me and they say I need this done and I have $500. I'm like, that's going to take a lot more than $500 to complete, and you have to explain what it is that you're getting for the money, right? What is it that this is what it costs for you to hire an agency. This is what it costs in this area for freelancers. Like, come armed with information, understand the market, and a lot of the times people are coming to you with a low ball number because they don't understand what it costs and they might not know. So educate them. And sometimes it might mean that you're not going to work with them, and other times it'll work out for the best. But I assume that they're not coming to you because they disrespect you or your work, right?
There's lots of different shades of free. There's pro bono free, there's volunteer free, and then there's just taking advantage free. And I think if you can afford the time, and some people can, to do something for free, or if you think that that's going to help you, then make it something you care about, or something that you really think will advance you, because there has to be an exchange of value. Then there's also there's a difference between, can we give you $500 and you're going to give us this, this, and this, or, oh, your budget is $500. Here's what I can give you for that. I mean, there can be a conversation. I wouldn't assume that it's done with ill intention, but at some point you can probably determine if it is and if it makes sense for you.
It's your responsibility to be due diligent and letting people know this is what design costs. If you don't do that and you just do it on a handshake, you're letting them know that's what designers do. Like, there's an ethical issue here. Like, you don't go into your doctor or your lawyer or anyone else and say, oh, well, I know that you do great work, but I only have like $200. Fine, I'll give you $200 worth of health exams. Like, that's it. Like, there's a cap, so they need to understand that. But then also, there's conversations. Like, let's start with 200 now. Let's revisit it in 2 months, and let's add more to this. I'm interested in helping you grow what you really need, but you can't probably have it all now.
Yeah.
On freelance, when I was starting out, I worked a lot of hours at my in-house office, and I didn't really want to work freelance, but there would be opportunities that came along. So I would charge a lot to do the work because I thought, well, if they really want me to do the project, I will gladly get paid a lot for it, versus if they don't really want me, I don't need to just take on a random project for that hell of it, because going back to that balance question, I just didn't need to be creating 24 hours a day. So I ended up getting some projects that I didn't necessarily want to work on, but I made some good money on, versus, I didn't really end up doing any chump change projects as freelancer. But that's also another way of saying no. Is like,
when you realize that someone doesn't respect you as a designer in your field, you probably don't want to work for them anyway. I don't care how much they pay you. It's not going to be a healthy outcome.